Have you ever been lying in bed, the house is completely quiet, and suddenly you hear this frantic scratching sound coming from inside your walls?
Oh, yeah. Or maybe just a faint, persistent chirping echoing down your bathroom exhaust fan.
Right. Well, you are not crazy,
Yeah.
and, you are definitely not alone. Picture a perfect, idyllic neighborhood. We are talking about Kingwood, Texas, specifically.
It is a beautiful area, right?
No, absolutely. It's a master planned community that started back in the 1970s. So you walk down the streets of places like Forest Cove or Bear Branch, and there are just thousands of acres of preserved pine, magnolia, and oak trees.
Yeah, the canopy literally reaches right over the roof lines out there.
It is incredibly peaceful. But hiding just a few feet above the heads of the people living there, like inside their vents, their chimneys, and their attics, there is an escalating battle going on.
Honestly, homeowners are fighting a war of attrition against biology here. And the wild part is most of them don't even realize they're losing it until the damage is already structural. Or, worse, airborne.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today on the Deep Dive, we are looking at a comprehensive guide on Kingwood bird control and wildlife exclusion, which was provided by a local company called the Critter Team.
It is a really fascinating document.
It really is. Our mission today is to figure out why modern homes are so surprisingly vulnerable to bird invasions. We are going to look at the hidden, frankly terrifying health and fire hazards they bring with them too.
And navigate some incredibly strict federal laws, right?
Yeah.
Because those could turn you into an accidental criminal if you aren't careful.
Exactly. Plus, we will learn why it takes basically military-grade precision to get these birds out and, more importantly, keep them out.
What's fascinating here is the lens through which this guide views the problem. Like, this isn't just a pest control manual handing out quick fixes.
No, not at all.
It's really a look at the unintended consequences of human architecture intersecting with avian evolution. We are essentially looking at how our mid-century building habits inadvertently created the perfect incubators for invasive species.
Well, let's start with that architecture clash, actually. Why is Kingwood specifically such a prime battleground?
Right, so Kingwood has this beautiful tree canopy
Mhm.
with branches practically touching the houses.
Yeah, which seems like it would just keep the birds in the trees. So it's not just the proximity to nature, is it?
No, it is fundamentally about how these houses were actually built. The housing stock in Kingwood leans really heavily toward construction from the 1970s to the 1990s.
Okay.
And the standard building practices of that era included running bath exhaust vents, dryer vents, and kitchen exhaust ducts directly through the exterior wall or the roof.
Sure. That makes sense.
But the only barrier protecting the inside of the home from the outside world is usually just a simple plastic flat or like a very lightweight hinged piece of aluminum.
I always think of those flaps as the flimsy bouncer rope at an exclusive club.
That is a great way to look at it.
Like, it might look like a barrier, but if someone really wants in, they are just going to step right over it. Over time, those cheap plastics warp in the baking Texas sun, or the metal hinges corrode.
Or the wind just pushes them wide open.
Yeah. But here's the question that I think anyone has to ask when looking at this. Why do birds even want to live in a dark, metallic exhaust pipe?
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive.
Right. I mean, they're surrounded by thousands of gorgeous, majestic oak and pine trees. Why choose a drier vent?
So, to understand the motivation, we really have to look at the specific biology and the history of the primary culprits here. We are talking about house sparrows and European starlings.
Okay, what is their deal?
Well, neither of these birds are native to the Americas. Starlings, for instance, were introduced to New York's Central Park in the 1890s by a group of Shakespeare enthusiasts.
Wait, what?
Yeah, they wanted America to have every bird mentioned in Shakespeare's plays.
You are kidding me. So this entire architectural crisis in Texas started because of a theater club in New York a century ago.
I mean, yeah, basically. It gets even stranger, though. Both starlings and sparrows are what biologists call secondary cavity nesters.
Meaning they don't build nests in tree branches.
Exactly. They are biologically hardwired to seek out pre-existing holes to build their nests. In the wild, they would look for an old woodpecker hole or a hollowed-out dead tree.
So they aren't looking at my house as a human dwelling at all.
Not even a little bit.
They are looking at it as an indestructible, giant hollow tree that I have graciously provided for them.
That is the perfect way to phrase it. Think about it. A tree branch leaves a bird exposed to heavy rain, extreme heat, and predators like snakes or hawks.
Yeah, that sounds stressful.
But a vent, it is totally enclosed from the elements. It is often climate controlled by the air leaking from the house.
Right.
And the opening is perfectly sized to keep larger predators out.
Wow.
So to a starling, your warped 1980s plastic vent cover isn't an obstacle. It is premium fortified real estate.
And the dense trees in Kingwood are just acting as staging areas then. Like, the birds hang out in a magnolia tree, look across the roofline, spot that drooping plastic vent flap on the side of a house and think, bingo, move-in ready.
Spot on. The guide also notes that uncapped chimneys are another really consistent staging area in Kingwood. Starlings will go right down a chimney and build massive nests inside the chase.
Hold on, let's define that, because when I hear the word chimney, I just picture the brick tube where the smoke goes up. What exactly is the chase?
Oh, that's a good distinction to make. In modern construction, the actual pipe that carries the smoke and exhaust, so the flue, is often housed inside a wood-framed box covered in siding or brick veneer.
Okay, got it.
That hollow wood-framed box is the chase. It is full of dead, empty space. If the top cap is missing or damaged, birds drop straight into that hollow wooden cavity to build their nests alongside the hot metal flue pipe.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of the danger here, because I think a lot of people just assume a bird in the vent or the chase is merely a nuisance.
Right, like it's just annoying.
Yeah, you hear a little chirping when you are trying to sleep and that's it. But the source material makes it clear that we are looking at massive structural and biological hazards.
The hazards are incredibly severe, largely due to the physical construction of these nests. Like, sparrow and starling nests are not just a few cute twigs carefully woven together. No, they're incredibly dense, compressed masses. These birds will scavenge grass, feathers, string, mud, and they will aggressively rip insulation from nearby openings in your attic.
Just to pack it all in there.
Yeah, they pack the cavity completely solid.
The detail that genuinely shocked me was about the starling nests in the ductwork. The guide states that a full starling nest can run the entire length of a 6-foot dryer duct.
It is hard to picture until you see it.
I mean, imagine 6 feet of densely packed, highly flammable debris entirely blocking a metal tube.
Right, and consider the physics of what happens next. A clothes dryer is designed to push massive volumes of hot, moist air alongside highly combustible cotton and synthetic lint out of the house.
And if it can't get out?
Exactly. If that 6-foot duct is blocked by a wall of dry grass and feathers, the heat backs up. The lint gets trapped right against the nest. You are essentially forcing a high-temperature blower directly into a pile of dry tinder.
So you are basically baking kindling inside your walls every single time you dry your towels.
But pretty much.
That is completely terrifying.
And the fire risk is equally high in those chimney chases we just discussed. If a nest is sitting against a metal flue pipe and you start a roaring fire in the fireplace, the radiant heat can easily ignite that nest.
Lighting the wooden framing of the chase on fire from the inside out.
Exactly. But beyond the fire risk, blocked vents introduce a critical carbon monoxide hazard.
This would be from gas-powered appliances, right? Like a furnace or a water heater.
Yes. Any appliance that burns fossil fuels absolutely must vent its combustion gases outdoors.
Yeah.
If a bird builds a nest in the flue of a gas water heater, it restricts that exhaust.
And carbon monoxide is invisible and odorless.
Right, so it has nowhere to go but back down the pipe, spilling out into the utility room and just filling the living space.
Okay, so we have immediate lethal threats. Fire hazards and carbon monoxide backups. But I want to play devil's advocate for a second here.
Okay, go for it.
Just on behalf of anyone listening who likes to tackle their own home repairs. Let's say I find a nest in my bathroom exhaust vent. I don't use gas appliances and I caught it early.
I see where this is going.
Is this really a call the professionals level of danger? Or is this just a gross chore I can fix with a shop vac, a garbage bag, and a free Saturday afternoon?
That thought process is incredibly common. And it is the exact mechanism that gets homeowners into severe medical trouble.
Wait, really?
Yes, because the danger isn't just fire. It is highly biological. The droppings from starlings and sparrows are massive vectors for disease. Specifically, they host a fungus associated with histoplasmosis.
Okay, I know that is a respiratory illness, but how does a bird outside my house give me a lung infection?
It comes down to the environment the birds create. Bird droppings are extremely rich in nitrogen. That acts as a super fertilizer for the histoplasma fungus naturally found in the environment.
Oh, I see.
So when birds roost in a confined, dry space, like an attic or a vent, massive piles of these droppings accumulate and dry out. The fungus just thrives in this crusty layer.
So the fungus is just sitting there.
Right. But when you introduce a shop vac into that equation, you change the state of the fungus entirely.
Oh, no.
A standard shop vac is essentially a high-powered air displacement machine.
Right, it blows air out the back.
Exactly. So if you take that vacuum into a poorly ventilated attic and start sucking up dried bird droppings without industrial-grade particulate filters and full respiratory PPE,
You are blowing it everywhere.
the vacuum's exhaust blasts those microscopic fungal spores straight out the back. You turn a dormant, localized pile of droppings into an invisible, airborne cloud of infectious spores.
And then you are breathing that deeply into your lung tissue.
Yep. So your DIY weekend project just gave you a severe respiratory infection.
That is wild.
And we haven't even touched on the insect vectors yet. Nests are completely teeming with bird mites.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, these are microscopic parasites that feed on the blood of the nestlings. When the baby birds fledge and leave the nest, or if you remove the nest improperly without treating the area, you suddenly have thousands of starving mites left behind.
They aren't going to just sit there quietly and wait to die, are they?
No, they migrate. They crawl down the ductwork, slip through the seams of the drywall, and come out of the air conditioning vents looking for a new mammalian host.
Which means they end up in your carpets, your furniture, and your bed.
You got it.
Consider me sufficiently horrified. The shop vac stays in the garage.
Probably a safe bet.
So we're trapped here. The nests cause fires, they cause carbon monoxide backups, they launch fungal spores into your lungs, and they send blood-sucking mites into your bedroom.
It is a nightmare scenario.
Any rational person would look at that list and say, get them out of my house immediately, by any means necessary. But if you just start ripping nests down, you cross over from a biological hazard straight into a federal offense.
Yeah, the avian legal minefield is incredibly complex. And it all hinges on correct species identification. Because not all birds are treated equally under the eyes of the United States federal government.
Right. The guide highlights 3 main culprits terrorizing Kingwood: house sparrows, European starlings, and great-tailed grackles.
Yes.
And the rules for dealing with them are completely different based on one singular distinction, right? Whether they are native or non-native species.
That is the ultimate dividing line. As we discussed, house sparrows and European starlings are introduced, invasive species. Because they do not naturally belong in the American ecosystem, they are afforded zero protection under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act.
For a homeowner, that means if you have sparrows clogging your dryer vent or starlings taking over your chimney chase, you have a green light.
Exactly. You can remove the active nests, discard the eggs, and evict the adults at any time of the year without needing a federal permit.
But then we look at the great-tailed grackle.
Yes. Anyone living in the greater Houston area knows these birds.
Yeah, they are those large, iridescent black birds that make an incredible racket and love to congregate in huge flocks.
Right. They love to roost on the open tops of masonry chimneys, using the high vantage point to look for food, while dropping nesting debris straight down into the flue.
And what's the legal difference?
The critical difference is that grackles are native to Texas. Therefore, they are fully protected under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act.
Let me push back on this a bit because I am not an ornithologist. If a bird is aggressively stuffing twigs into my chimney, creating a fire hazard, and I decide to be my own amateur wildlife ranger.
I wouldn't recommend it.
But what happens if I guessed the species wrong? What if I genuinely thought the black bird in my chimney was an unprotected starling, but it was actually a protected grackle?
Ignorance of the species is not a legal defense. The Migratory Bird Treaty Act operates on strict liability.
Strict liability.
Yes. If you trap, harm, or relocate a grackle without a federal permit, you are breaking federal law. If you discover an active nest, meaning there are eggs or nestlings inside, that nest is completely untouchable.
You can't just carefully move it.
You cannot disturb it, move it, or destroy it under any circumstances until the entire nesting cycle is complete and the birds leave naturally. No matter how inconvenient or dangerous the location is for your home.
That is an incredible logical bridge. We are caught between biology and the law.
Yeah, you have a firebomb in your wall, but if you touch it, you might be committing a federal crime.
This completely reframes why you would call a professional. It's not just about avoiding bird mites. It is about shielding yourself from serious legal liability.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, a certified wildlife operator knows exactly what species they're dealing with before they ever touch a nest, and it dictates their entire operational strategy.
Because you can't touch the grackle nests.
Right, because you cannot touch an active grackle nest. The professional approach shifts entirely to proactive deterrence. You have to physically engineer the structure to be inhospitable long before the spring nesting season even begins.
So how do we actually thread that needle? We need a solution that defeats the biology without violating the law.
Yes.
And that brings us directly to the methodology of the critter team, because we are talking about a military-grade approach to this problem here.
Well, using the term military grade here refers to a very specific operational standard. The owner of the critter team, Mike Garrett, founded the company in 2015 after a 20-year career in the U.S. Army.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he built his entire business methodology around a core standard adopted from his service. Basically, if a job is worth doing, it is worth doing right the first time with no half measures.
That philosophy is the exact opposite of the typical DIY hardware store trip. The guide mentions that the most common points of failure they encounter in Kingwood are homeowners trying to use generic products that look good on a shelf, but just fail catastrophically in the real world.
Let's examine the materials people usually reach for. You might go to a big box store and buy a roll of hardware cloth.
Which sounds like a fabric, but it's actually that stiff woven metal wire mesh, right?
Yes, it is galvanized steel mesh. A homeowner might crumple it up and stuff it into a vent, or they might use a can of expanding spray foam sealant around a chimney cap.
Which seems logical at first glance.
But they are failing to account for the environmental extremes of the Houston area. The heat and humidity are just relentless.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The galvanization on cheap hardware cloth degrades quickly, and the wire rusts completely out. The expanding foam sealant bakes in the sun, becomes brittle, and cracks apart.
And as we already established, those flimsy plastic vent covers are useless against a starling that views your house as a hollow tree.
Right. They're literally strong enough to wedge their beaks under the plastic flap and push their way inside.
To permanently defeat that biology, the critter team brings in serious credentials. They are bird barrier certified installers and ridge guard certified installers.
And they do not subcontract their labor, which is huge. Every technician is trained in-house to understand exactly what they're looking for.
The guide says they start with a deep inspection, looking for very subtle clues, like fan-shaped droppings below a vent. I found that detail really fascinating. Why fan-shaped?
It comes down to the physics of how a bird uses a flat vent cover. When a starling sits on the bottom lip of a wall vent, facing inward toward the nest cavity, it projects its waist backward and downward.
Okay, visual painting there.
As the waste clears the vent, it sprays out against the siding of the house in a distinct fan-like pattern. To a trained technician, that specific shape is a dead giveaway of an active nest, even if the bird isn't currently there.
And once they identify the active spots, they do a complete pressurized duct clearance to extract all that flammable mite-infested debris. And I imagine that clearance step is totally non-negotiable before you seal anything up.
Oh, absolutely. If you skip the clearance and just slap a heavy-duty bird-proof cover over the outside of the vent, you have just permanently entombed the nest inside the pipe.
That sounds bad.
You have trapped the heat, the lint, and the kindling together, virtually guaranteeing a house fire.
Man. So after the pipe is completely clear, they move to custom on-site metal fabrication. They use a tool called a metal brake, which allows them to bend custom sheets of metal to perfectly match the dimensions of whatever weird, warped 1970s vent opening your house happens to have.
Which is very necessary in Kingwood.
But this raises a huge question about engineering for me. How do you balance the need for a heavy-duty, impenetrable bird barrier with the fact that an exhaust vent still needs to efficiently push air out of the house?
The balance of airflow dynamics is exactly why that bird barrier certification is so critical, because every vent on your house serves a completely different mechanical purpose.
Like bathroom versus kitchen.
Right. A bathroom exhaust fan pushes a low volume of humid air. A dryer exhaust, on the other hand, pushes a massive volume of hot air mixed with heavy lint particles.
So you can't just use the same metal mesh cover for both.
Not at all. If you put a heavy mesh cover with tiny holes on a dryer vent, it might keep the birds out perfectly, but those tiny holes will immediately catch the wet lint.
Oh, and it clogs up.
Within a month, the mesh is completely clogged. The exhaust air stops flowing, the heat backs up into the appliance, and you have engineered the very fire hazard you paid to prevent.
Wow.
A certified installation matches the mathematical airflow requirements of the specific appliance to a barrier designed to handle heavy bird pressure while surviving the Texas summer.
The Critter Team Guide also points out an important strategic decision for homeowners. Full versus partial exclusion.
This is the big one.
Yeah. Partial exclusion means they only engineer a fix for the specific vents you called them about. Say, the dryer vent and one chimney cap. Full exclusion means they inspect and seal every single potential entry point on the entire structure.
For a persistent problem, like secondary cavity nesters, full exclusion is almost always the more economical long-term investment.
Why is that?
Sparrows and starlings are just relentless. If you seal off their favorite dryer vent, they won't just fly back to the woods. They will shuffle 3 feet to the left and force their way into the bathroom vent.
They just go next door to the next luxury condo you have provided.
Pretty much.
It is also worth noting how this ties into their warranty. The Critter team backs their exclusion work with a written guarantee. If you choose partial work, the warranty only covers those specific, isolated spots.
Right, which makes sense.
But if you invest in full exclusion, the entire perimeter of the house is covered. It all comes back to that military standard we talked about.
Yeah.
Do the job right the first time, completely.
It really does.
So let's bring all of these threads together. If you take anything away from this deep dive today, it should be this. The idyllic, tree-lined architecture of your Kingwood home makes it a prime target for an invasive bird invasion.
The risks are not just noise, you know.
No, you are looking at severe health risks from histoplasmosis spores and terrifying fire hazards from blocked dryer vents. Plus, the federal laws protecting native birds are just a legal minefield. A professional, engineered exclusion strategy really is the only permanent, safe way out.
It really is.
So if you are hearing that scratching in the walls when the house is quiet, if your dryer is suddenly taking 3 cycles to dry your clothes, or if you are seeing massive flocks of grackles gathering around your chimney heading into spring, it is probably time to bring in the heavy artillery.
Don't wait on it.
You can look up the Critter team online. They cover Kingwood, Kings River Village, Forest Cove, Bear Branch Village, Foster's Mill, and all the surrounding areas 24 hours a day. You can reach their humble office at 281-667-0171, their spring office at 281-800-4992, or just submit a contact form right on their website.
You know, as we wrap up, investigating this topic leaves you with a truly fascinating, almost mind-bending thought about our place in nature.
What's that?
We always view our homes as shelters designed to keep the wild world out, right? But from a purely evolutionary standpoint, the moment we started building heated, predator-proof, pre-hollowed structures with open vents, we didn't just build homes for ourselves.
Oh, wow.
We accidentally became the greatest biological engineers the avian world has ever seen. The birds aren't invading our spaces. They are simply moving into the highly efficient habitats we built specifically for them.